In a lot of my videos, you guys have commented and wondered how I get my PlastiDip to spray on so nice that I have zero texture for a final result. Today I'm going to show you how to do exactly that. I've got a piece of sheet metal right here that I've already prepped with the pre-dip spray from dipyourcar.com. I'm going to be spraying this piece of sheet metal with a spray can along with a spray gun. Now I'm going to show you guys today how to do it and how to get a perfect finish every single time. Now I'm going to show you my technique. I'm going to bring the camera in and show you exactly how I do it. Now before I actually get started on this, I've thrown all my PlastiDip inside a bucket of hot water. I let it sit there for a good 10 minutes so all the PlastiDip and everything is warmed up, and it's going to make it so our PlastiDip sprays a lot better. Not only for the can did I do this, but I also did this for a gallon. Now I've got it inside of the warm water right now. I'm going to let it sit there until I actually feed and need my can and my spray gun. This makes a very big difference on how the PlastiDip sprays out of the gun or the tip, because when you warm up the PlastiDip is going to be able to atomize a lot better than as if the can were cold. Now I demonstrated this before for you guys inside one of my other videos, but I'm going to show you again today on a piece of metal. I'm going to replicate this and pretend that this is a car, and I'm going to be spraying this the exact same way. So it doesn't matter if you're using cans like this, it doesn't matter if you're going to be using the high volume tip that Dip Your Car has, or if you're just using a DYC gun or even an HVLP gun. The principle is the exact same, and the way you spray it is essentially the exact same. That's enough talking for now. Let's get started. Now I'm first going to show you guys how to do this with a PlastiDip aerosol can. Now I let this sit, as I said, inside a bowl of hot water, let it warm up, and the can is nice and warm. So when I spray this, the fan that comes out of here is going to be perfect. Now when you're spraying this, you want to make sure that you get a perfect 50-50 overlap. So what that means is if I'm going to be spraying this panel down, I'm going to first start off here. So I'm going to do 50, and every time I go for the second pass, I'm only moving up 50%. So if I'll start off here, my next coat is going to be right there. And the one after that is going to be here, here, and you just keep working your way down until the entire panel is done. Now, depending on how big the fan pattern is, you're going to be moving down that much more. That's why when you use a spray gun or something like that, when you do a car, it takes no time because your overlap is like this. So you're doing this amount of area, then you're moving down another 50%, and then another 50, and another. And then getting this done is going to be very easy. So for the aerosol can, I'm going to start off by just spraying this little area, and you'll notice my technique. I'm going to be laying down a wet coat. Now I'm going to show you exactly what that means. If I just spray down this panel like this, you're going to get texture. See how it's not flat? If you left this just like this, you're going to notice later that you're going to have texture. Now to fix this, all you have to do is spray it wet. Just like that. And when you spray it wet, the PlastiDip is going to self-level, and it's going to give you a nice, even, flat surface. I'm going to keep going with this. You see what I mean? See how this panel is nice and wet? I'm going to get the camera, bring it in, and show you guys exactly what this looks like. Now keep in mind, this is still the first coat, but after we start building up those layers, we're going to be able to see a nice reflection out of our PlastiDip. So if I just sprayed this on and dusted it like earlier, like this, can you see that it's not as shiny as everything else? So when you bring the light into the reflection, see how it's like that? That is not how you do it. This will leave texture, I guarantee you. Like this, it will not. And if you keep building up your layers just like this that I have right here, you're not going to get any texture whatsoever. Now spraying down PlastiDip with the aerosol can is going to be the exact same way as if you're spraying it with an HVLP gun or even the DYC sprayer. Now when you're doing this, you don't ever want to put wet PlastiDip on top of dry PlastiDip and let it sit. If you're going to want to do an entire panel or car or whatever and you don't want texture, you want to let the entire panel dry uniformly. So because this part here is wet and this little section is dry, if I wanted to come back here with a second coat, I'm not only going to have to do all of this little silver part over here, but I'm also going to have to continue on in all of this. Because if this dries before this does, you're going to have a little spot in the middle that's going to be very weird. You're going to see a little bit of texture. So the way I'm going to spray this is very similar. So I'm going to first spray down a coat here in the middle, just to bring this back to the black, so it's the same thing. And then after that, I'm going to do an entire coat over the entire thing, so you have one uniform layer. You're not going to have any transitions, you're not going to have any gaps or anything, and it's going to look perfect. Now I'm gonna spray this entire thing down and get started. So you're gonna be spraying this the same way as before. So you wanna do the constant 50% overlaps when you're going down the entire panel. So watch my technique. Now that the right side is complete, I need to do another coat onto the left side that has already had some PlastiDip on there. So just continue spraying the dip until the entire panel has a nice wet coat. Now as you can see, this left side over here, this is where I sprayed with the HVLP gun. And as you can see, it's a nice wet coat. It's not quite as dark as this, only because this has one coat and this has two. You can see the little line right here where it goes from dark to not so dark. But again, as soon as I go in there with a second and third coat, it'll all look uniform and you won't be able to see a difference. But as you can see, the entire thing is wet. Now it's going to self-level and it's going to make it look very nice and very uniform. Now these little spots and everything, that's not the PlastiDip, that's the piece of aluminum or the sheet metal itself. So I'm going to let this dry, come back, and then hit it with a second coat. After the first coat is dried up and we're left with this matte PlastiDip, we're gonna have to put down more layers of this stuff only so that we're able to peel this off afterwards. That's the main reason why we put so much PlastiDip on the panel. Not to have the color, but you wanna have that peelability. That's the beauty of this stuff. So I'm gonna get my compressor, my spray gun, and I'm gonna put down another coat on this. Now, the second, the third, the fourth coat, they're all gonna be the exact same way. You wanna have that constant 50-50 overlap, and you wanna make sure that you're putting down wet coats. So, here I go. Now, here's something to note. If you notice that not all the parts are getting fully leveled, if you want, you can go back and hit it with another coat. Like, just go over it like this. If you do it quickly and you can see it starting to self-level then, that just means you need to slow down your pace or crank up how much PlastiDip is coming out of your gun. Those minor tweaks is where you're gonna be able to get that sweet spot and just make a nice, even flowing when you're spraying. See how there's a nice reflection off of this? That means that I put a nice wet coat of PlastiDip onto the panel. Now this is exactly what you want. When you start making it too light and everything, you're not gonna have that reflection, and only at this point it'll self-level. If it's not shiny and has this kind of reflectivity, you're not gonna be getting a nice even coat once all this stuff dries. You can already see how this side over here is starting to dry, and as we move along down, it gets wetter and wetter. So just let this dry, come back, and then hit it with a third, fourth, or however many coats that you want. Now my message to you guys isn't that you guys need expensive stuff like this to get a nice finish. You guys can do the exact same thing with aerosol cans, you can use a DYC sprayer, you can use anything. However, the one thing that you guys should get from this is that you need to spray this PlastiDip wet. Now if you don't get that wet coating, you're not gonna have a nice even finish. If you dust it on like I showed you before, you're not gonna get a nice flat surface. You're gonna have texture and it's gonna be noticeable when you get right up to it. Once this dries completely, this leveled PlastiDip that I have right here is gonna be perfectly matte. You're not gonna have any texture, no runs, no nothing. Now, with that being said, when you're spraying this down, there's a very fine line between spraying it wet and running. You have to play and dance with that line very carefully, because if you put too much PlastiDip down and you make it wet, if you're doing, say, a vertical panel, so like the side of a car or something like that, when you're spraying it and you're putting it on too wet, the PlastiDip is gonna wanna run, and you're gonna see that as a final result. For these great finishes, it doesn't really matter what you use as long as you use it properly. If you guys have any questions regarding the video, please post them down in the comments below and I'd be happy to help. Again guys, thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.